All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We have Brewers Chairman and Principal Owner Mark Attanasio here. We're going to go right into questions. Just a couple of reminders, unless you're actively asking a question, please remain on mute. We're going to use the raise the hand feature. I will call on you, and then you can ask your question. So with that, we will go right into questions. If you want to use the raise your hand, I will take questions for Mark, and we'll start with Adam.
Hi, Mark. Can you just share with us any of the background that you can about your conversations with David in recent weeks? He had indicated that there was maybe some talk of extending him beyond his current contract, but he wasn't willing to do that at this time. And is that the point where it was kind of decided that it was right to step down?
Sure, I'll give a little context to that. Well, at the outset, I write my own quotes. Tyler and Mike don't write my quotes for me, so I pretty much said what I want to say in the press release. But as David did this morning, I'd want to thank him and his family for 7 years of tireless efforts, highly successful efforts, where he integrated into every aspect of our organization, not just baseball ops. And through that, over all these years, I've been, not only part of his professional career, but part of his family life. 2 great kids now born, hard to believe, from the young man who had just gotten engaged when he started with us. And so, Adam, and that's a little bit of a preamble in that regard. You have a relationship with someone, and you're talking all the time. So I talked to David a number of times every week for 7 years. And so as career things come up, it's organic. It's not like, it's September and we have to talk about your contract. And so, with that, we, look, obviously, maybe not obviously well stated. Of course, we were interested in extending his contract. He's one of the brightest executives I've met. We manage, we invest in companies for a living. And I think we have over 400 private company investments at any time. And he's as exceptional an executive as I've seen in any line of business. So the answer is yes, we wanted to extend him, but he's got a lot of considerations. He and his wife, he and Whitney were transplants to Milwaukee. They love Milwaukee, by the way. They're staying in Milwaukee during this period, and they're choosing to. Under the terms of our arrangement, I'm not sure they would have to. And but they have a young family, and they have a lot of decisions that they had to make. And so we had an active dialogue for several weeks, which really was more. It was more personal than it was transactional by a lot. And I think he spoke, very clearly this morning about what his thought process was. And so obviously we're supportive of that.
And we'll go to Todd Rosiak.
Hey, Mark, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. Assuming that David, or I guess I shouldn't assume, but if David expresses interest in potentially moving on and another team shows interest in him, can you speak to whether you would require some sort of compensation or some sort of transaction to take place in order for that to happen? Thank you.
Sure, Todd. I think my 2 sons, Dan and Mike, are listening in. One of the things I've tried to mentor them on, not only in business but in life, is to try to just focus on things that are at hand and not hypothetical. So, that hasn't been part of the conversation. What's been very much part of the conversation, I think David expressed this morning, his desire to assist us in transition, his desire to, take some time for himself for the first time really in depending how you want to measure it, 11 or 15 years. Desire to, still be part of the fabric of the community in Milwaukee. And, that sort of makes this a win-win insofar as we get, some of the very good guidance from David, and Matt Arnold has absolutely earned an opportunity to lead something, and he's getting an opportunity to lead it at a point when we're at a good point in our cycle. I look back at what I say, I try to be realistic. I felt this was one of the better, maybe the best team we'd ever had. The start of spring training, it didn't play out that way, but by definition, there's a ton of major league talent there. We don't have Josh, obviously, but we've got everybody else, and importantly, we had several guys at AAA and AA make major strides this year. So this is as exciting a group of young players as we've had in a very long time. So, in that point, because David did not want to, leave at a difficult point, it's actually, you're not handing Matt, you're handing Matt an opportunity to lead something that's still, ascending and doing well. And so that, I think, is part of what we all talked about.
We'll go to Steve McGargy with the Associated Press.
Just when you talked about Matt, just what have you seen in him during his years at the organization that make you think he's kind of ready for this challenge? And how is he kind of similar to or different from David, from what you've seen from your perspective?
Well, thanks, Steve. David hired Matt. And so, David chose Matt 7 years ago to join him in this enterprise and building the team. And if you recall, that it pretty much built this team from the bottom up. We'd had a very successful run, for many years with Doug, but that last group of players that finally, I guess, moved on. We pretty much, the team that ran through 2014, 2015 was a core group that had been very successful for years. And so David and Matt, Matt was part of seeing what we've done here from the ground up, and is an integral part of it. I know David gave him a lot of specific areas of responsibility. I'd rather have Matt talk about that. And so, the way I look at it is you have like a pilot and a co-pilot, and now the co-pilot's sliding over to the lead pilot's seat, and he knows how to fly the plane. So I'm excited to see what thoughts he brings, because while he definitely he definitely had significant input into what David finally approved, I wasn't really privy to whether and they have a whole group in baseball ops, right? There's a significant R&D group. I don't really know how the sausage was made. I just know that it tasted pretty good, and being Italian and being now part of the Milwaukee community, we know a little bit about brats and sausage.
And we'll go to Andrew Wagner.
Hey, Mark, thanks for doing this today. Does Matt continue under his existing contract, or is there going to be a new one drawn up for a new length of time, or is everything just going to be status quo for now?
And everything's status quo. We prepared for this. Not that we thought David would leave. You try to build an organization so that, if anyone leaves, including at the very top, we want to use the analogy, the plane can keep flying, and that's true at every level. We've had people throughout our organization, with our, success, move on to other teams, and we almost always promote from within. So Matt's contract, when he was made promoted to general manager, as a long-term contract, and anticipated that he could be in the number one position, or the senior most position, and so it's been planned for. We prepared for this, for a while now.
And we'll go back to Adam McCalvey.
Mark, our understanding is that Craig's contract is through this coming year. Do you anticipate addressing that? Are you comfortable with it as it is? And does David stepping down from president of baseball operations impact the fact that Counsell is your field manager in any way?
Well, that's the last question. Yes, I think we don't really talk about contract terms, but I think for managers, it's public record that this is the final year of his contract. As with David, I have a very close relationship with Craig, ongoing relationship with Craig and his family. He's, one of the best managers in the National League. He's one of the most prominent people in the state of Wisconsin. And, and so I'm sure we'll talk about this as we see fit. Matt and he, by the way, and this is maybe a little different than in big cities. I think Matt and Craig are neighbors. When I decided to, with obviously in discussions with David, promote Matt, I talked to Craig about that a while ago now. Again, as I said, he was wholly supportive, and so I expect the transition will be seamless.
And we'll go to Sophia.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for
Sophia.
doing this. Hi. Matt was talking about, stability and the relationships, and that's something that he feels like he and David have in common. Do you foresee any other changes within the baseball ops group? And also just with the arrangement with David, are there areas that you anticipate he'll still be involved, or is that going to be fluid between like David and Matt in terms of, how present, I guess, David will be moving forward?
David is in an advisory capacity. And so I think all of the senior members of our team, me, Matt, Rick Schlesinger, Marty Ronsky, all can reach out to him. I am sure he will be very diligent in how he approaches what we're doing. He's very thoughtful, as we know. And I think, that'll really be, I know, look, you see in any, by the way, I saw when I bought the team, I used to call Bud Selig, Commissioner Selig, all the time. And by the way, I still do. In fact, I talked to him this morning and last night since this was happening. And so, I think that in the nature of these relationships, now where it moves from sort of, Matt reported to David to now Matt, needing to lean on David or choosing. It's really a question whether he chooses to or not. He doesn't have to. But, I'm sure he will. And if it goes the way most of these transitions go, he'd probably be more in, the early part of it is he's the very steep, it's very different to be number one than number two. Very different. And I know Matt's ready for the challenge of that, but it's good to have a peer to lean on. And by the way, Matt is, been in baseball a very long time himself. So he's got, peers at all the other clubs. He came up in the Rays organization. He has plenty of people to lean on if he wants advice. Just David will be giving friendly advice and others may be giving advice colored with competition.
I don't see any other hands raised at this particular point in time. Adam?
Sorry, Mark. Can I
All right.
please follow up on a Todd question about, there's so much interest in David's future. This has been a favorite pastime of many baseball fans in certain cities in the country. If another team calls next week and says they want to interview David, do you know what you would say?
I really, I'm going to stick with the advice I give my sons. I just don't occupy myself with that. The arrangement does not anticipate that.
Okay, we'll take a couple more, starting with Todd.
Mark, we didn't get a chance to speak to you at the end of the season, and I was just wondering if you could give us your take on the way things kind of, evolved at the end of the year, and just the disappointment of not making the postseason, which I know is always a goal for you and your organization.
Yeah, well, I often say, and I certainly felt it this year, 18 seasons in, I'm still a fan first, and it was really painful. It's always painful when the season ends, unless you win that last game, which we haven't yet. It was especially painful this year. So I'd say the West Bend silver lining in that is, I think it allows us all at every piece in the organization, and I've talked to Craig and Matt about this, and then within the respective groups, it allows us to really take a hard look and think about where we could do better. And Craig, as a statement, talks about challenging the players, challenging all of us as colleagues, to challenge each other with love. That's important. So I can tell you that we are taking a harder look at things than we have, and it just qualitatively, from what I can perceive, a harder look at things than we had in seasons where we made the playoffs, and I think that will make us better. And I know we're really intent on getting back to the playoffs next year. Really intent. Any other questions?
Lance, go ahead.
Hey, Lance.
Hey, Mark, good to see you.
Yep.
You anticipate the philosophies between, Matt and David being about the same or similar, or are there things going forward that maybe you or them or whatever would like to tweak and make a little different to achieve that World Series?
Well, I think that'll be, coming from them, right? So I when I spoke to Matt yesterday, I said, listen, Matt, you're going to get to put your stamp on this. And we're going to have open dialogue, and I want to try to have, and I think I will, like I said, Matt's a neighbor of Craig's. So I know they can talk to each other as neighbors. We'll hope they can talk in this new, from number one person in baseball ops from number two. But I want to make sure that we have the same kind of good communication among, Craig, Matt, and me that we've always had. And I expect we will, since Matt's been here for 7 years. Several games over the years, especially this year, we'll be, down in the clubhouse. David and Matt be down there. David go upstairs, and I'll watch a few innings of the game with Matt. Nothing like watching a game with someone, especially the early innings when there's usually not that tense, and exchanging ideas. So, I'm looking forward to that, and I'm excited to see what Matt brings to the party.
And we're going to close with Todd Rosiak.
All right, Todd, the closer.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I was wondering, this has been such a big topic of discussion amongst fans, and I don't recall seeing any comments from you in particular, but could you talk a little bit about your investment in the soccer team? And I think there's some concern as to whether that will impact how you approach the Brewers and the payroll and all that sort of thing. So any sort of clarity you could provide on that front would be greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Sure. We invested in the Norwich City Canaries. It's in the Championship League and European Football League, which is the league right below the Premier League. They've kind of bounced back and forth between the two. We are a minority investor. So there's a control, actually, the owners own over 50%, I mean, the lead owners. There's many shareholders. And so it's an opportunity to really learn that sport. Also an opportunity to, share information. They are doing some things in training that we find interesting. And I think we are doing some things in analytics that they find interesting. So it's, it's interesting with a background on Wall Street. I find and I, worked for some years even on a trading desk, when you have money invested in something, you learn a lot faster than if you just try to study it from afar. So a lot of American owners have gotten involved in European sport. And so this was a way and a very modest, basis to get involved in. And frankly, the seasons don't really overlap. So they're well getting into their season now as we're done with our season. So I don't, and obviously I don't, whether I have some distractions just watching the games, I'd expect, our baseball ops group to do everything. They don't really need my help, and Craig doesn't need my help. So it's one of the benefits of having the continuity that we have is I may ask a few more questions because I'm getting to know Matt in this role more. In fact, I will ask a few more questions, but that's not a distraction for this at all.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much for your time today, and thanks everybody for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mark.
everyone. Go Brewers.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark. Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you.
Thanks, guys. And Sophia.